Well, hello, I'm Joe Gaugler. I am a long-term care professor in nursing at the University of Minnesota, as well as the Director of Graduate Studies in the Center on Aging. And today we'll be talking about mixed methods, and I will be providing you with a basic overview of some key concepts related to conducting mixed methods research. So for the first part of this module, I wanted to really focus on trying to get a better grasp of what is mixed methods research. How do we actually define it? Much of what I'll be talking about in part one will be derived from overview of best practices for mixed methods research in the health sciences, authored by Cresswell and colleagues back in 2010. So really, before we even talk about attempts to define mixed methods and what definitions of mixed methods look like in the literature, I wanted to share with you a little bit about my own prior experience about how I came to embrace mixed methods research for my own program of scholarship. In terms of my own particular scientific interests, I'm very interested in families and how families care for persons with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. One of the key aspects of my research that's inherent in family care for people with memory loss is the long-term nature of the experience. Oftentimes, people with Alzheimer's disease can live anywhere from 3 to 20 years with the illness, and for many family members, they are oftentimes providing concurrent care throughout the course of a loved one's Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. So I was always very interested in some of the key events that occur during the course of Alzheimer's disease family caregiving. And one particular event that happens and occurs for many families, and many families have to grapple with this, is admitting a loved one to some type of residential long-term care setting, whether that's a nursing home or assisted living setting. And much of my work, really dating back from my master's degree, focused on this experience for families. And so I was trained in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies at Penn State University, which is known for having a very highly quantitative approach to research and research methodology, and particularly longitudinal methods. So much of my work has focused on how really conducting longitudinal analyses of family members' experiences before and after a loved one is admitted to a residential long-term care setting. But several years ago, by the time I became a faculty member here at the University of Minnesota, it became really apparent when I was talking with families and working with families and providing outreach to families in different venues that taking a purely quantitative approach, a purely measurement approach to issues related to family caregivers' experiences, say before and after residential long-term care admission of a loved one, really wasn't adequate. It wasn't capturing what was happening for families. And a lot of the times in talking to families, I would hear one thing, and then I'd look at some of my empirical findings and see something entirely different, which suggested some degree of divergence. So that led me to study and consider alternative methodologies to better capture the experience of family caregivers in this particular context, and then to again better understand the longitudinal implications of family caregiving. And that was really what led me to develop what was called a Mid-Career Development Award, or a K2, vis-a-vis the National Institute on Aging. And what this particular proposal focused on was longitudinal aspects of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, but more specifically, and getting back to the earlier bullet, was really focusing on another area of interest in mine, and in this case was developing and evaluating effective services and supports for caregiving families who, again, assist a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. And in particular, the K2 was focused on applying mixed methods to better understand how and why families utilize community-based long-term care services for their relatives. And that K2, that Mid-Career Development Award, I think really spurred my interest from an academic and scientific standpoint in terms of applying mixed methods to my own work and to other additional scholarly questions of interest. Now, there's always a great maxim of basically, if you don't know something, teach it. And so what I ended up doing was, as part of my K2 award, was actually developing a doctoral seminar in mixed methods research. This particular seminar was basically focused on applying mixed methods research and concepts in the applied health, behavioral, and social scientific disciplines. And it was a very interdisciplinary course. And again, through teaching that course, that led me to further develop an appreciation for mixed methods work. And then finally, the last initiative we engaged in was the Mixed Methods Interdisciplinary Graduate Group, which was founded in 2009 by me, again, as a result of this Mid-Career Development Award, to really create a community of not just fellow faculty, but also students and other community members here at the University of Minnesota or beyond, to really discuss issues and challenges related to how we apply mixed methods research in our own day-to-day work, our own day-to-day research. And so these experiences combined really led me to consider mixed methods as a key methodological underpinning to a lot of my scientific work. So moving ahead to not just my own experiences with mixed methods, but then also, I guess, how I best understand the history of mixed methods research. How has this come to be seen as a worthy methodology for many of us to consider in our own research? Really, I would say based on my readings, and again, I want to really make clear this is according to me. There certainly are much more comprehensive histories of mixed methods. Some people have even traced mixed methods to really early debates of philosophy of truth per se. But for me, I think mixed methods as kind of a current methodology emerged out of what were called the paradigm wars, primarily in the 1970s and 1980s, as a way to bridge the divide of this growing chasm between individuals who were strongly adhered to quote-unquote quantitative methods. Some would consider this positivistic, post-positivistic worldviews of science. There is a truth out there. It can be measured and assessed objectively, versus qualitative worldviews. And again, when we think of paradigms, constructivist types of paradigms, where in fact truth is a social construct or is a constructed way of knowing and being. And I think mixed methods more or less emerged as a way to try to bridge some of these gaps in various disciplines. For example, in educational psychology, where many of the pioneers of current mixed methods research and standards, such as John Cresswell, I believe, came from. I mean, I've certainly seen this in some of the disciplines I'm familiar with, for example, in developmental psychology as well. But when we really think about mixed methods, and this alludes to my earlier point, it's been around for a long time. When you look at, for example, some traditional studies in psychology, such as the Campbell and Fisk classic 1959 study of the multi-trait, multi-method matrix, which was really core to understanding construct validity and measures, that has been actually held up as a potential example of early mixed methods research. Similarly, in sociology, the work of Lapierre, really dating from the 1930s, that focused on attitude and behavior, was a wonderful early example of mixed methods research as well. So really, even though mixed methods as a concept, mixed methods as a quote-unquote methodological movement has likely emerged over the past several decades, in fact, scholars have been using multiple methods to better answer their questions of interest for a very long time. I've always thought mixed methods research can operate or is influenced along three planes of research. You've already heard me talk about paradigms, really our worldviews of how we actually approach truth, how we actually come to obtain knowledge in our given areas or given disciplines. And some mixed methods scholars have suggested that mixed methods itself can be its own paradigm, particularly or specifically utilizing other existing paradigms to kind of fit mixed methods into it. Good examples are pragmatism. Jennifer Green also talks about dialecticism, which is kind of pivoting back and forth between different worldviews when constructing knowledge vis-a-vis one's own research and optimally using mixed methods as an example. Again, thinking of paradigm as an idea of how we think about and study truth. Mixed methods can also operate on the methodological plane, which is really the study of scientific methods, the rationale and philosophical assumptions driving our methods. So a nice way to think of methodology, particularly when trying to differentiate it from methods, is our way of thinking about methods or way of thinking tools. And some people, again, consider mixed methods, again, operating on that methodological plane. And then finally, I think most scholars feel most comfortable in thinking of mixed methods on this particular plane, which is on the methods plane. Methods really deal with procedures, data collection tools and analysis, or ways of doing methods. So really from the standpoint of sampling, from the standpoint of measurement, from the standpoint of analysis, thinking about mixed methods on that particular plane. So again, when thinking of science and how we conduct science and how it operates along these planes of paradigm, methodology, and methods, mixed methods has by now been positioned across all three.